All right, you're good, Wolfie.
All right. All right. Welcome back to the 24 Down podcast. I am hosting today, Wolfie. We are at episode 36 now, which is crazy. And I am really excited for this episode. We've got one of my best friends, roommate from college, Tom Harshberger, is on the call. How's it going, Tom?
Good, man. It's good. Good to be on the 24 Down podcast.
I know. I'm
Kinda
pumped.
crazy.
So this might actually be, we were just talking, this might be the earliest in the day that we've ever recorded a podcast. Because
Yeah.
Tom is actually over in Northern Ireland right now. And so it's actually 9:30 here where I am. And what time is it there, Tom?
It is 2:30.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Amazing.
I went on a little hike this morning and went down to the beach with Brooke and some friends, and we've got a lot of the day in already. So kind of funny.
Nice. Well, this would be a good break in the middle of your day. So
Yeah.
So real quick, just to start, before we kind of get into where things have gone since Valley Forge, what years did you go to Valley Forge?
I was at Valley Forge from 2006, fall 2006 to graduated spring 2010.
Okay, and then you lived on 24 Down 2 years, right?
2 years, yeah. I came
Okay.
in, lived in Bongiorno my first year with the basketball team, and then um, and then I was in 24 Up for 1 year. Actually, I was in 24 Up for a year and a half because I could not stand Bongiorno, so we left. Me and John Rojeski both left around the same time and moved to 24 Up, and then we were there for about a year and a half, and then moved down into the apartment.
I didn't know that you and Chocolate lived in Bongiorno.
Yeah, Chocolate was in Bongiorno Up. I was in Bongiorno Down. I was with like my RA. My ARA was Matt Bowden actually my freshman year.
He's like the only person I actually know and remember living in Bongiorno, just
Yeah.
probably because we made fun of him for it all the time.
Yep. Him and Justin Caudle, I think, were I
Oh
think
yeah.
roommates. And then I was rooming with a guy named Brent Troyer. He was a really great guy. He was on the basketball team. And then I had a couple other random roommates, I feel like. And then and so then left there and then went to 24 Up, and then 24 Up was with like that was when like Rocco and Ryan Deal and who was the RA? I'm forgetting his name.
Miles.
Miles, yeah,
Yeah.
Miles. They're great guys, and so I was up there for a year and a half and was good friends with a lot of those. My friends group. This is the one of the things that was so weird about Valley Forge was like my friends group. I had like 5 different friends groups. It felt like throughout my time at Valley Forge. So like I was hanging out with people in like the music department because I was a music minor, and then being involved with soccer, had friends in the soccer team, and then the 24 Down people, and then 24 Up people, and then random like Sammy Thangaya and like that whole crew. So it was like, yeah. So I was an eclectic 4 years of Valley Forge when it came to the people I'd hang out with.
Yeah, just like a social floater.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally.
All right. So so why don't you tell everybody? I'll just kind of shut up. Why don't you just give everybody an update then? Just post graduation, post Valley Forge. What you've been up
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. So graduated 2010. Moved up to New York. Was a youth pastor there for a little under 2 years. I'm in my home church in Syracuse in upstate New York, and was there for just under 2 years, and then took a position at Christian Life in Central PA in Camp Hill. I had interned there and started the middle school ministry while I was an intern at Valley Forge in between my junior and senior year. And then, long story short, came back to them to become a middle school pastor, and then was there for about 7 years after I came back, and met Brooke maybe in my 5th year, I think. Or actually, we had known each other for quite a while, but then we ended up getting married uh, the year before I left. So we got married, and then we started praying about what we want to do with our life and where we wanted to go, and we kind of felt like it was like a natural ending for being at CLA, and so we were like just felt like we were starting to feel like God was telling us to go somewhere and do something different. So started praying about it. We had led teams to Northern Ireland in the past. I had been on a missions trip to Northern Ireland when I was 16, right down in Belfast, and kind of like the heart of where like a lot of the troubles that used to be here were. Crazy stuff, like had like a Molotov cocktail thrown at us like while we were painting a mural, and just craziness. And like Northern Ireland to me as a high schooler was like this like crazy place that would be exciting to go do ministry or whatever. So but kind of put it on hold, never really thought about it. And then whenever Brooke and I started dating, it was like, holy cow, like, I think because Brooke had gone on missions trips there, and I had gone on mission trips there, and it was like God put us together. And then it was like, well, maybe this is actually where we're supposed to be going. And so prayed about it for a season, told my pastor, we started the process, got appointed for AG missions, and then headed out in 2017 to start fundraising, and then fundraised for a year. And then we've been in Northern Ireland now for 3 years, and we'll be heading back this summer for our first like fundraising trip. So, and then this last year, like with COVID and stuff, it's just been crazy. So yeah, that's kind of how we got to where we are now. And we're doing like random, like ministry here is pretty crazy, because like the first 2 years we were like campus pastors of a church, and then once COVID hit, we had kind of felt that we were supposed to move on from where we were, and so we left the church. And then 2020, like our 20, like everyone complains about 2020. Our 2020 was like the 2020th of all the 2020s. In January, in December, we had told our church we were leaving. Went back to the States to spend some time with family. Brooke went into early labor at just under 24 weeks. And we lost our first baby, Lydia, in January of 2020. And then and then in August, late August of 2020, we lost our son at 18 weeks, Reese. And so, and then in the midst of all that, Brooke's stepmom died suddenly of cancer. My grandma died. My uncle died of COVID back in December. And so our 2020 was like just the worst. And so so now we're like on the other side of it. We're trying to prepare for fundraising. We're trying to kind of get our ducks in a row, like emotionally and physically and mentally and all that kind of stuff, and get ready to start fundraising and come back and have a great second term. So
Yeah. It's 2020 was a terrible year, but I think, I appreciate you being honest about it, because it is a lot of perspective. And yeah, I mean, we're close. And so, Meg and I, like, we knew what you guys went through last year and just how awful it was. And, but like you said, you're on the other side of it, looking forward. So that's the good thing now to move on and, have the support of family and friends and, God and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was like, it's just an awful year, man. And then we had a tough couple years before that in ministry with just over here. It's been tough. And so it's weird. And that's kind of the thing for us, is like we're learning, as well, we've been learning for this last year, like grief isn't, like they talk about the stages of grief, but in reality, like it's a circle, and it's like Wheel of Fortune. Like every day you wake up and it's a different one, like you just spin the wheel and then you find out what you're going to be feeling that day. And so that was like, for us, it was a really good learning process of figuring out what processing grief actually looks like,
Yeah.
and being in COVID, this year, like it's been a little bit of silver lining because we are so isolated. Um, we're the only missionaries in our country, really, and um, leaving the church that we were part of, like we were like kind of on our own, and so like being isolated for that whole year was in some ways hard, really hard, but then in other ways it's great because you're like just processing and you have to live with it. Like it's not like you can
Mm-hmm.
cover it up with being busy. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things, like people go through difficult things and they're like, oh, I'm just gonna be successful and move on and go do stuff and just bury it. And so for us, as hard as it's been, like being able to just process everything this year has been super healthy. So
Yeah. I remember when my dad passed, like we had, no, it's so early, I can't even remember. But like time off for grieving. I forget what it's
yeah,
called, but
brief,
um,
yeah,
I didn't even take the whole time. I was like, I have to get back to work. I have to like get like I can't just sit home um and I imagine like for you guys too, like being overseas. I mean, you guys are far
yeah,
from home.
yeah.
That adds to it too.
Yeah, and when you come home, it's also like it's like re-traumatizing when you get back because so my like we had my grandma and my stepmom pass away this year,
Mm,
and when we came back, it was like we are back in Mechanicsburg for the first time without them there. And so it's like it triggers you back because you're like, I've never
right.
experienced any of this without, like you like drive past their house and you're like, oh, they don't live there anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah, it's weird being away from home. Kind of feels like you're stepped out of reality. So when you come back into, well, our home is here now, but like when you step back into Central PA, it's like, whoa, you know,
Yeah.
it kind of sets in. So
Yeah. So that's like the other crazy thing I was gonna bring up was, so you talked about like coming and working at Christian Life Assembly.
yeah,
And it's just wild that, so Dshat and I both lived in like Mechanicsburg, Dillsburg,
mhm,
and then like we all connected at college and then like lived together.
yeah,
But like I don't know like when we learned, but like that your grandma lived like literally across the street, like not like figuratively, literally lived across the street from my high school.
yeah,
And I was a huge part and still do help out at CLA too. So that was crazy too, that just having you, I mean, like pretty much right after college, having you and DShat both still around, that we were able to hang out all the time, was pretty cool.
yeah. It was really cool. And cause I remember whenever, I mean, I think I knew that Wolfie, or I knew that D-Shat was from Central PA before I knew that you were from Central PA. And then I knew that he was involved with Christ Community back in the day. And yeah, I mean, like it was crazy because like when I remember we came home or we came back to Central PA after Valley Forge, and D-Shat's working at Nito Burrito, and you're working at Blockbuster, and I was at CLA, and it was like, wow, like not much has changed. Like, so
No, it was like a nice, easy transition out of like college instead of
yeah,
just getting thrown into the
yeah,
adult life, like real world. It was like, oh, like it's like
yeah,
college part B.
yeah. It was weird. Yeah, it was good though, and because there was a few other people from, wasn't there a few other people in our area from Valley Forge? Samuel, like Rob was around, Matt Matthias is around.
Yeah. Yeah, like Matthias still lives in the area.
Yeah,
Yeah, Rob Gillen was here. I know like Mike Kemmler, he's in Carlisle.
yeah,
And there still are like a ton of people around, even just within like 24 down. Like we're learning like all these people that live in Lancaster and still around like Philly, and then up this way it's pretty, like Mark Telesha lives in Hershey.
oh really? I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, he's at Milton Hershey
Oh, he
school.
works for Milton Hershey.
I think so. I think,
Cool.
yeah.
We know a few people that are house home or home parents there. It's a really cool job.
Yeah. And then so the other thing is like I knew Brooke, your wife, even before you knew her, just from helping out
Yeah,
at church. Like she came up through the youth group.
yeah. Which is
Did
like,
she?
disclaimer, I was never her youth pastor. I was no.
So
You should talk about your best man speeches.
yeah, so you guys have, what's your age difference? It's not like crazy.
6 years. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Which isn't like, I mean, I've met people that are married and 12 years apart. Like 6 years really isn't anything crazy. Yeah, so I was Tom's best man, and at your wedding, I gave the best man speech, and I put a joke in there about your age difference. And I think it was like, the start of the joke was like, when Tom and Brooke started dating, a lot of people were really concerned about the difference in age that they had. And like, you could just see
I saw
the room just like
man.
turn pale, like,
It
oh,
was like,
how
no,
he did
here
it.
we go.
And then the punchline was like, yeah, like Tom, like he loves Halo, he loves, I forget, I don't even remember, but basically alluding that you were basically like a middle schooler.
Yeah. Brooks actually marrying a middle schooler, so
Oh my
it was
gosh.
so funny though. Like it was like, honestly, it was like one of the best jokes I ever heard. It was the best. It was the best, most well written best man like speech I think I ever heard in my life.
Thanks,
Which I
man.
got biased because it's for me, but like
Dude, I practiced it so hard. I wrote that thing like months in advance, and I remember reciting it in our living room in my underwear to Chocolate and Meg like before the wedding. And I was like, I have to nail this. It's essentially a roast, and I love the
it
roast.
was. Yeah, and it was so good. Yeah.
So, and when you and Brooke started dating, was she going to Valley Forge at that point? Because Brooke also went to Valley Forge.
Yeah, so she started after I graduated. Um, she had just come home from her freshman year,
Okay.
and we started dating that summer. And she came home. We started painting a mural. Actually, Rob Gillen was the high school pastor at the church at the time, and he was like, "Hey, we're starting a series on in a pit on a snowy day. It's a lion themed book by Mark
Mm.
Addison.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like, "Can you paint a mural of a lion?" And so I was like, "Yeah, I'll do that." And Brooke was like, "Oh, I'll help." And so we painted this mural, and it was like hours and hours and hours of spending time together. And it was like, well, guess we like each other, kind of a thing. So yeah, so then we started dating that summer. So, but she was then she went back for a sophomore year, and then we got married her in between her junior and senior year, which is kind of crazy to think about now. But
Yeah, and you guys didn't live at school.
no, we found
That's right.
it was like we found this like crazy tiny awful apartment in
Oh yeah.
north of Lancaster in a place called Denver. It is the armpit of Lancaster County, and we lived in like a basement. It was the worst apartment I've ever been in my life, but it was our apartment, so it was great, So,
Yeah.
so I drove an hour to Central PA. She drove an hour to Valley Forge for her senior year every day, and then we drive back together in the evening. So it was a wild year, but it was good.
It was probably still like 5 stars compared to married housing at Valley Forge, though.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Did you ever were you ever in married housing? Like, did you ever visit over there?
yeah. My sister lived in married housing for 2 years, and
Oh, I didn't know she got married at Valley Forge.
yeah. So for everyone listening, I have a twin sister that came into Valley Forge with me named Bethany, Bethany Chappelle now, and her and Aaron Chappelle got married when they were seniors, and so they lived in marriage housing, but they lived in an apartment where the bathroom was so small that, like, no joke, anytime that they had to like use it, they would just go to the SRC because they just couldn't use the bath. Like they were like, it was just an awful bathroom. So they're like, you know what? I'm just gonna go to the SRC because it was right across the way and it was always open.
Yeah.
So I've always felt bad
Hilarious.
for it. It was so bad. And they had like the faux brick walls, like the Italian, like that, like Italian Tuscan, like fake brick that people put in like Italian restaurants.
Yeah.
It was like everywhere in their apartment. Like it was the ugliest apartment you ever seen in your life. So yeah, no, I definitely don't recommend anyone living in married housing at Valley Forge.
Oh my god. So what years did Brooke go there? She would have been like 2011.
Yeah, she started in 2000. No, she started in 2012 and ended in 2018, I think.
So do you think she was 24 down still around when she was at Valley Forge? Do you know?
No, I asked her
Talk
last
about it.
night. I asked her last night. I was like, "Hey, so what do you think of when you hear of 24 down?" And she's like, "It's just a junky old building. Like that's all I really knew about it." And I was like, "So there's no like, because I mean, like even when I was a senior, like that was starting to fade. Like my last year,
Hmm.
because it just kind of started to fizzle. I think all the 24 down stuff. Well, I mean, actually, our senior year, we still like there was a lot of pranks and stuff. It was a lot of fun that year, but it just, I think once our year graduated, it kind of
Yeah.
a big thing. And then they obviously, I think they've like turned it into storage now. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's been mentioned on the podcast, I think. Like, I don't think it really started until like Buddha came in and Carlos and Telesh had their whole plan. And then, like, I feel like maybe around the time like we moved down was like when it like kind of hit like its peak of like
yeah,
what 24 down was. And
yeah,
then, with you guys graduating, I know there was still people that were around after that, but it
it's it's
fizzled out a little bit
yeah,
and then turned into storage.
it's interesting how a lot of these things kind of ran together. But I felt like when it came to like student life and just the vibe of the campus, um, my freshman and sophomore year, it felt like the school was way more into the stuff that the school was putting on. And then my junior and senior year, it was like people just could not give a rip about anything. And so, like, my freshman and sophomore year, I remember going to the basketball games and like every game being absolutely just packed, and like the rivalry games between LCBC or not LCBC, Lancaster Bible College, just being unbelievable. And I remember people painting their faces for the games. Like that was when like it was like like Andrew Southworth and uh, Rocco and like all those guys would paint their faces for the games. And like there was like a student section with like weird like chants and
Yeah.
like you can't chanting you can't do that all the time, and like like just like it was a lot. It was just fun. Like, and people were like super into the games. And then I remember like by the time we got to our senior year, just no one cared. And the funny thing was the basketball team by the time we were seniors was like the best it had ever been, but just nobody cared. Like it just wasn't a thing anymore. Um, but I also remember my freshman year, sophomore year, the football games between 24 down and 24 up, and just being so all about it, man. I loved it.
Mhm.
Like I didn't play football at all. I just went to go watch, but like a lot of those guys like I remember Rocco getting a concussion one year. Um I
They were
remember
basically like that was like the rivalry was
yeah, it
like
was.
Miles and Rockers because they lived on 4 down and then they moved to 24
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Um, but like Rocco, Miles, Deal, like all
Yep.
those guys
Yep.
were kind of the rivalry against like Buddha and Nate and
Yep.
just all the 24 down football team.
Yeah.
I never played a game. I
Yeah, I would have got destroyed. I am not a football player at all. But it was, I mean, it was just I just loved it. It was so much fun. And we were like living in Bongiorno. It was like I'd rather be a part of this than like whatever the heck was going on in Bongiorno. So we left as soon as we could, and Chocolate got this little one person apartment. We actually both got one little one person apartments in 24 up.
yeah.
Mine was like the worst room. It was like an L shaped, like it wasn't even a room. It was like a closet they converted into a bedroom. And I just remember Rocco doing naked handstands on everyone's doors, and like that was my introduction to it. I was like, I'm not opening that door, man. Like I'm not.
Yeah. So Hat did those too. So Hat, you weren't the only one doing naked handstands at Valley Forge.
So bad.
I feel like there was never anything happening at Buongiorno, and I personally I think like Buongiorno Hall is probably equivalent to like the prison that like The Situation and like Michael Cohen, like like minimum bougie security prison is
Right.
literally what Bongiorno Hall looks like.
It is.
It
It
probably
literally
feels
does. Like
like.
every time I see on like Reddit, like when somebody posts about how amazing the prisons in Sweden are, I'm like, oh, that's Bongiorno.
Like they didn't even really have windows on Bongiorno. Like
Yeah, no, they. I mean, they did, but they were like really thin and
like
yeah,
fogged glass, yeah.
they had a really bad black mold problem in Bongiorno too. And so I was like, and we were paying so much for it. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I saved so much money by moving into 24 Up.
It was so much better.
Yeah.
All right, well, you ready to get into some questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
I got a good handful, so yeah, we'll just dive in, and then yeah, we'll see what stories come up. If there's anything else we want to talk about afterwards, we can. But so to start, we've got Junior, one of the twins that people were aware of. So you were kind of like a secret twin. I don't think a lot of people knew that. But Junior says, little tongue in cheek, says, "What about your upbringing made or makes you so harsh?"
Right.
And then I'll just read it together. And then he said, "Is there a special type of burger they have in Ireland that you haven't had in the States?" See what I did there?
Ooh, very nice. That's a lot of nice little ties in there. Um, so what made me so harsh? My dad is a New York State trooper, and my mom is a high school teacher. So I didn't really get much leeway growing up uh, on anything. Um, I I often tell the story when it comes to like youth group events or from like telling a funny story or whatever. Um, I often tell the story about getting in trouble for throwing snowballs at cars when I was in high school and them calling the police station and my dad like literally being the cop that got sent out and realizing that it was his son that was doing the throwing snowballs at windshields and stuff as cars were driving by and I was grounded. I was grounded all for I got grounded all of December. It was awful. I had to open up my Christmas presents and then like stare at them. I couldn't use them until January 1st. It was the worst Christmas ever.
I can't imagine like it's scary enough like as a kid. Well, first like as a kid, like it'd be scary enough having the police show up, but then to like see your dad get out of the police car is just got to be like, oh
Yeah.
crap. Like
Yeah. It was you hear that feedback?
it's a little hard to hear.
There was a
All right,
feedback
good.
that's gone now. Yeah. No, it's when you're yeah. But I will say this though, the positive side is when your dad drives you to school in the cop car, like that's pretty cool. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like that was pretty cool growing up. Like your dad drops you off in the cop car. Um so
That's pretty funny.
and then I would say my favorite burger here, I would say um man, like there's like the area that we live in is known for something called Dexter beef, which is like a special kind of cow that is like it's very similar to like Kobe beef, where it's like super, it's just so
Mm.
good. And so all the cows that live right by my house are like all Dexter beef, and so we've got a coffee shop right across the street from our house called Fodder, that is a teepee. It's a giant teepee, and they serve burgers and all their beef products and stuff there. But we would get a burger with rashers on it, which is like really really thick cut bacon that you can't get in the States.
Mm.
So that is my favorite kind of burger, man. It's so good. So
That sounds delicious.
it is. It's amazing. They the it's just it's strange because like you can't really put your finger on it, but just the food here just tastes just slightly different in every regard. And it's I love both. I love American food too, but you have to experience the sausages here, the Irish breakfast. Oh man, it's amazing.
Mm. Someday.
Yeah.
So next questions we have are from Hat, the Podfather. So Hat's first question is, what jobs did you have while you were at Valley Forge?
Ooh, that's a good question. I I worked at Starbucks in Syracuse during summers. Um, at a Target. It was a Starget and Nike outlet in where was that? Limerick.
Oh yeah, like right in front of the smokestacks, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel bad for the people that work there long term because I'm sure they're all going to get some sort of crazy disease. But like
Right.
me and Wolfie worked, or not Wolfie, Chocolate worked there.
Mm.
And a few other people from Valley Forge worked there as well. I can't remember who it was, but that was an all right. It was a good job, but we got such a good discount on the clothes that like I never really made any money because I would just buy tons of just Nike stuff I didn't need to buy.
Right.
so um so yeah, that was my two jobs. And then I interned at CLA my last year. So
Mhm.
yeah.
So Hat's next question is, if you had a go-to scan and scram move. So I guess the first part is, did you ever scan and scram? And then the second part would be, what was your, how would you do it?
You know, I don't think I ever scanned and scrammed. I think I might have done it like maybe once or twice, and it was
Mhm.
like it was more of a gut reaction to like the situation rather than like I'm gonna do this today. It
Yeah.
was more like, oh man, I just really do not want to be here right now. I want to be in bed, and so I just kind of meandered and walked out.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the times it was just if a lot of times if you just didn't really, I don't know, it always felt like you could scan and scram if you just kind of wandered. If you like blind it, they'd be like, "Oh, what are you doing?" But if you just like, I don't know. It's
It's a
just one of those.
confidence move. If you're
Yeah,
confident about it, then
yeah,
it's kind
yeah,
of what I got. I don't think I ever really, I think I might have done it like one or twice. Usually if I wanted to like sleep in, I was just like, screw it, I'll just sleep in. I
yeah.
remember one time I got out of chapel for like 2 weeks because I told them my back hurts.
Right. I
They
never,
just
I
were like,
never
okay.
did. I never got any of those like excuses. I wish I could have done that, but I actually, I, I was not good with chapel. My junior year, I skipped too many times and lost my scholarships and had a really tough. That
That
was a
was
year.
that was the year chocolate like never went either.
Yeah,
So remember
yeah,
we would just come back after chapel and just like run into
yeah.
his room and yell at him.
I was so mad, man. And I remember I went down to Evie Meyer's office and like had a not great meeting with her.
Oh wow.
And um, yeah, I didn't get him back. I didn't get my scholarships back, but it was really frustrating. And you pay for it later. Like I mean, my school loans I think went a lot longer because of that one
Not
semester.
having
So,
the scholarships. I think
so
that was the year. I don't know if people remember this, but I think my senior year, junior year was the year too that like for like the first like month of the year, school year, like the chapel like system, like the scanning system was down.
yeah,
And so like nobody went because they were like, they're not tracking it. Like they can't.
yeah, I do remember that. I remember my like towards the end of my time there, like I had this tendency to fall asleep with my contacts in. And so I would walk to chapel in the morning. Like I would literally just jump out of bed, like throw pants on and stumble out my room.
Mhm.
And cause I just set up my schedules and then morning classes. And I just remember it being like people always make fun of me because I looked like
You look like
like,
this.
yeah, I was just like, what is happening right now? Cause my eyes just killed because like the contacts were like sticking to my eyeballs. It was like terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think like chapel was pretty boring and pretty ridiculous, but like if you just went and like did shenanigans and like just had like I probably
Yeah.
goofed off with D-Shat like every day in chapel, like writing dumb notes and drawing funny things, like that we didn't really mind it that much.
It seemed like it got better throughout the years. Like it was always like I remember like towards the end they started allowing students lead worship
Yeah.
and it seemed like they were getting more guest speakers in. I hated poking around Phoenixville. I know that I skipped that chapel once, Scandalous Grand, because they'd always have like the Chamber of Commerce for Phoenixville banner on the stage, and you're like, nope, not doing this one. And yeah, but
Hands down the worst. If you asked anybody that went to Valley Forge, like, what's the worst chapel
yeah,
that you ever went to?
yeah,
Around Phoenixville.
yeah.
It was like the Nickelback of chapels.
It was, and it felt like it was like a big win for Dr. Meyer and a big L for every single person on that campus every single time. Like it was like so obvious the only reason we did it is so that like there could be some schmoozing happening with people in the community. And it's like, can we do this without subjecting our students to this? Like,
yeah,
like there's got to be another way than having us have to listen to somebody that's an accountant in Phoenixville talk about how great accounting for Jesus is.
Right. And like Phoenixville is really cool now. I'm sure. Well, I mean, there's like a lot of like brewing companies and cool stuff like that they would never bring to Valley Forge, but
Yeah.
but like Phoenixville is like pretty cool now. When we went there, it was not cool. Like there was nothing.
Yeah.
Like, happening in Phoenixville.
I still love Molly McGuire's, man. That's a great place. And there's Artisan's coffee was always really good, and you can't go wrong with that Taco Bell, man. That was such a good Taco Bell right by Valley. That place was like our go-to, man. Oh, I used to like put on so much weight after soccer season every year and then lose so much weight in the summer, like trying to get back to do soccer. Cause I was like, if I try to play soccer right now, like I literally will die. Like, but every year after soccer had ended, we'd be going to Wawa like every night.
Right.
Oh.
So Hat's last question is, if you can take one piece of 24 down, like a ceiling tile, a door, a brick, etc., what would you take and why?
Man, I would say I would take. Oh man, I don't know. You know what? I think I would take one of the washing machine doors and just like, I don't know what I would do with it, but like, because we used to play a game in the hall where we'd try to kick the soccer ball down the hall and try to close the washing machine door. I don't know if you remember that. We just stand in the hall and just kick the ball down the hall all like for hours, trying to slam the door or like get it to bounce into the. It was just like one of those stupid games you play when you're bored. So I would take that. Yeah. Either that or I just permanently take the door from our apartment and just take it with me. Because it never seemed to be on the hinges ever.
No. I think we talked about it. We broke every door in that apartment.
Yeah. Yep. But I think it was it was like every door got broke, but I think it was the main door into the room that we actually, I don't know who did it, but it actually like structural damage to the door itself. Like someone put a hole, like pieces of the wood was like coming off.
The only real like the door breaking memory that I have of like how the door actually broke was, didn't Maddie B like jump off the top bunk one night in your guys' room and like his pants got caught on the door frame and it like ripped the door off the hinges and pulled it down?
Yeah. I do remember that. And I remember Chocolate being really mad because like he'd sleep into like 11 in the morning every morning and now there was no door and no privacy. And Maddie B would always be playing his drum pad, like the snare drum. Yeah. And then remember Josh, I think he came in after you, Josh Wenzel. Do you remember him? He was our roommate.
Yeah, I was actually curious about that because I was trying to think of that because I graduated and you guys were all still there, the four of you.
Josh, Josh's a really cool guy. Josh came in, I would say, I don't know, probably around 300 pounds. Like he was a big dude. And he came in to be a youth major. I think he realized after about a year he didn't really want to do it. And so he had already had a background in IT. So he left and then started like like he started doing the kind of running that you do when you're nuts, like not like marathons, like he does like he'll do like 3 marathons at one time, like those kinds of running things. And
Yeah.
so
I just looked him up on Facebook because I was trying to remember what he looked like, and one of his profile pictures says, "Hell hath no fury like 50 miles."
yeah,
So this
yep,
guy runs.
he does like the insanity marathon kind of things, and he lost like crazy weight. Um, but he's like one of those guys that wears he wears like flip flops to run because apparently like it's I don't know why, I think it's better for your feet or something. But yeah, no, he was a great roommate. He was a lot of fun.
Maybe it's just funny to hear somebody running for 50 miles going flip flop, flip flop, flip flop, flip flop.
Yeah, maybe.
So next set of questions is from Baldwin.
Yes.
He said, so I guess this one he says more anecdotal, but he wants you to talk about your call into missions work, which you talked about a little bit, but maybe you can go a little more into it. Because he said, if I remember correctly, you were a youth ministry major while at
Yeah.
the FCC.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'd gone on some trips there. Brooke and I got married. Kind of realized that it was like more God's will than coincidence. And so we're like, man, this is just God keeps aligning this for us. And we had about 4 months that we're like, okay, let's just pray about it. We'll figure out if this is what we're supposed to be doing. And so it was like over the course of 4 months, we kept running into people from Northern Ireland everywhere and going to concerts that we didn't realize that the opener band was from Northern Ireland. Or Brooke went to a um, I went to like a prophetic conference and was like, okay, I'm gonna go to this because I'm trying to get some answers, trying to figure out this is what we're supposed to be doing. I'm gonna go. And this guy that was supposed to be there ended up not being there, and I was upset. And I was like, I'm just gonna go home. So I left this conference that I kind of built up in my head as to it was gonna be like maybe God's gonna reveal something to me. And so I left, and I get in the car and I'm driving home, and I'm like, Brooke didn't go. She was at an expo at Valley Forge on social work.
Hmm.
I was like, Brooke, like, I really thought this was going to be it. I thought God was going to show us, like, this is what we're supposed to be doing, blah, blah, blah. I was like, and the speaker didn't even show up. Like, what the heck? And she's like, well, you're not going to believe what happened to me tonight at this expo. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, we get to the expo, and the person that is the keynote speaker is a social worker that's been working on the Shankill Road in Belfast doing peace and like unity reconciliation work for the last 30 years. And we're just like, what in the world? And so it was like little things like that over and over and over again for 4 months. And we're like, you know what, like, I don't think God's going to hit us over the head with a shamrock or something like that. Like, I feel like, I feel like God has equipped us, and he's given us a desire in our heart and a passion for the kind of ministry that we could do in Northern Ireland. Um, so why not? And so we just kind of went for it. And um, I think people get really, really caught up on like what God's will is, and it's like people kind of view it as like a train track. And like people most of their lives, like most people kind of worry if they're spending most of their lives like running parallel to the train track or like running away from the train track. But I feel like it's not really like that. I think it's for us, we've experienced that it's like if you're living for Jesus and you're doing the things that he asks you to do, you can do that anywhere. And if God gives you a passion and a desire for a certain location to do that in, then he opens up the door for it, then then go do it. And so yeah. And it's been really cool, like being here, like it's just been it's been hard, like it's been really hard. But at the same time, like there's been confirmation after confirmation that this is what it's supposed to be. So.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I remember you guys going through everything and tossing it around and then making the decision. And it's just like it's God's will, but like it just makes sense.
Yeah.
Like everything that God puts in place, like it's just
Yeah.
like, why wouldn't you do this? Like, why wouldn't you follow
Yep.
him when he's leading you here? Yeah.
Yeah.
Over there, do you just kind of see what's happening in America and just go like, what the hell are you guys doing over here?
Yeah, it's really tough being here, honestly. It's like, and I think one of the things that's been really, really tough for us as we've been watching it is like coming home and trying to have conversations with people about it and realizing how much more polarized people have become even since we've been gone. And it's like you can't really even have conversations with people about politics or about like race relations or police brutality. Like you can't talk about anything with anybody because people are so
Mm,
like jacked up on their like one-sided view. I
mm,
feel like, and that's been really hard for us. Like we were home in December, and like you just can't, like, I was talking to somebody, and I'm like, and they're like, the the Antichrist, is Nancy Pelosi and all this stuff, and you're like, actually, I think there's probably some Democrats that are really great people,
yeah.
and you say that, and they're like, what, like, no, like, and it's just like, but we're so like moderate and in the middle, like but we're finding that it's just not really, that's not a thing anymore in America, at
It's
least
not.
from what we've, I've always been of the mind that you be suspicious of every single politician, no matter where they come from, and you'll be okay. But it's like, it seems like everyone back in the States is like, either it's a messiah figure in my life, or it's the Antichrist. And it could go either way. It could be Trump, or it could be, Biden, you know,
Yeah.
pick a side. But if that's the way you view everything, which is what it feels like it's become more and more in America, like it's going to be bad. And we've actually seen that happen in Northern Ireland, where like people are starting to take cues from the way that people are interacting politically in America, and it's like it's having a really bad effect on the way that people interact over here. So
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, wasn't it like that in Northern Ireland at one point with like the Troubles and
yeah,
all that stuff? Like that was like
yeah,
polarization. It's just like, oh, you're on that side, like you're
mhm,
my enemy.
yeah. And in Northern Ireland, it's very, very divided still, and like everything is very much under the waterline here. Um, the Catholic Protestant thing, like, I think it's something like a little over 90% of schools in Northern Ireland are segregated. They're Catholic schools or Protestant schools. And so just under 10%, I believe, of the schools here are integrated and are like, so
Hmm.
it's very divided. But it's funny having friends here talk about how polarized America is and how they're going down the same road that Northern Ireland, you know,
Right.
I've heard people here say things along those lines, like, "Whoa, this is, we see it coming. Like this is, you know." So it's tough, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, maybe by this summer it'll be a little better. I don't know.
Hopefully,
Everybody
we
keep
we just passed 15. This is what date? What's the date? I don't even know. It's February 6th. We just
6.
passed 15% of our population in Northern Ireland are now vaccinated, which is incredible. So um,
Yeah, I
that's
don't even know what it's like here.
yeah,
It's
that's
probably like
been
2% or something like that.
yeah. The Republic of Ireland is only 4%. And so, and then Brexit with all that, Northern Ireland is part of the UK. So us leaving the EU has been a really, really big issue with vaccinations and trying to force Northern Ireland to
Right.
hand some of their vaccines over to the Republic, and it's a big mess. But the lockdowns are really severe here. We haven't had in-person services for church in forever. Um, oops,
Is that you? Yeah, it's
sorry, I don't even know who
it's
that
okay.
person is. I'm using someone else's laptop, so uh, uh, but uh, but yeah, so yeah,
And so Northern Ireland is on the island of Ireland,
yeah,
correct?
yep,
But it is part of the United Kingdom, which
yes,
includes England.
yes, yep, and uh, but because Northern Ireland shares some, it shares a lot of, so Northern Ireland, the UK is obviously leaving. the European Union,
Mm-hmm.
Brexit, and all that. But because Northern Ireland shares a land border with an EU country, and because Northern Ireland has over the years been given some benefit of separation from the UK when it comes to different taxes, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
The movie making industry in Northern Ireland has been huge because they get a lot of incentives for it, and Game of Thrones has been filmed here and a bunch of other things.
Right.
Um, so there's a lot of like things that make Northern Ireland unique, but because of the breakup between the EU and the UK, they've kind of been put in the middle of it. So we always told people that Northern Ireland is the red-headed stepchild of like British Isles and all that, because it's like nobody really knows what to do with it, and
Right.
like it's just kind of this awkward separation. Mommy and daddy are fighting over, like it's weird. So
That's funny. So back to the questions. Baldwin's other thing was he just asked you to share some of your memories from your soccer days, which I know you had some things you wanted to say about that too.
yeah, soccer. That was so I started coming out to play pickup soccer at the end of my freshman year with some of the guys that were on the soccer team. I had gotten obsessed with Pez when I was in high school, which is like the other FIFA, which actually Mikey and Junior used to play Pez in their room a lot when we were at Valley Forge. So I got obsessed with Pez, and so started following Manchester United and getting into soccer and all that kind of stuff. And so when I was at Valley Forge, I just had no notion of playing because I've never played soccer in my life. I'm obviously never played. I'm probably terrible. I'm never gonna, I'm not super athletic, so I'm not gonna play. So I started playing the pickup games in the fall or in the spring. Coach Frankie Ari was the coach at the time, and he's like, "Well, why don't you come out for the preseason and just hang out, and we'll see if we can get you a spot, and you can at least train with us." And so, um, joined the team, and then like I'm not good. I'm terrible at soccer. Like I'm really not that good. But for whatever reason, because we only had so many people my freshman year or my sophomore year, I played like most of the games my sophomore year. Like I was playing a lot, and of course I'm not very good. They put me up at forward because the person that's the least good can do the least amount of damage when they're that far up on the pitch. So it's like we're not going to put them on defense because they'll score on us. But if we put them up at the top, like whatever. And so I played there, and then played pickup soccer every week, um, and then yeah, just kept working on it and stuff. And but the best memories I had was just hang out with the guys, and like just some like Dave Rika was there my sophomore year. He was a 9/11 survivor, an older guy. He was like probably mid-30s, came back to do some ministry school, and just so much fun. And Matt Baldwin and Sammy Thangaya and um, um, my first year Anthony Warfel and John Roundsville and those guys. My favorite memory, honestly, was we were playing Hood College in Maryland, and Chip Manelli. I don't know if you remember Chip Manelli.
I remember the name.
He had like a fro. He was like a white kid with a fro, and just a goofy kind of. He's like really into comic books, like just kind of a different kind of guy. And he was like very, very like, I don't know, like his first year, we had we were about a couple days into preseason, and we're driving out to like Collegeville somewhere to do a low ropes course as a team builder. And he had showed up late, so he's like, I'll meet you guys there. And so his mom drops him off at a gas station to meet with us to go to this high ropes course. And he jumps out of the van at this gas station in shin guards and cleats and shorts, like ready to play soccer at the gas station. And we're like, what in the world? Who is this kid, right? So then we're playing Hood maybe a year later, and he was just super stressed because he got put in like I think he was playing defense, and we were like getting beat pretty bad. And he was like in this really stressful situation or whatever, and the ball gets like hit up in the air inside the box, and he just reaches up and like volleyball hits the ball in the middle of the game. And everybody just stops and just stares at him like, what in the world? And I remember Matt Bowdwin just screaming at him, and he gets a red card like instantly because he plays volleyball in soccer, right? Like, and he turns to Matt and just puts his finger in there and goes, "Give me a freaking minute!" Just screams it across the field, and it was just like, oh man, it was just a wide range of emotions after that moment. But it was so funny. Like, oh, give me a freaking minute! What a great moment. I remember driving to Michigan for a tournament, and everyone having to go to the bathroom, but our coach wouldn't let us stop, so we're like peeing in Gatorade bottles and chucking them out the window on the highway, and just like just weird memories like that, like it was just a lot of fun. We were so bad, but it was a lot of fun. And I know you guys already talked about the Davis game, so I won't even get into that, but
Oh yeah. I think everybody hated the basketball team. Most people probably hated the basketball except for the basketball team and their girlfriend probably.
yeah.
But like I loved the soccer team, and I feel like a lot of people like really appreciated the soccer team, probably because they weren't very good. So the school wasn't like making exceptions to like things to like,
Yeah.
keep them in. But then like just like the shenanigans and like the people that played soccer,
Yeah.
like I mean, I loved like Flicka and Kyle, like those
Yeah.
guys, like you,
Like
and
having
Stevie, like a lot of people on 24 Up and Baldwin, like
the thing, the thing that I loved about soccer was that it was a magnet for a lot of the MKs. And so like if you're a missionary kid, like you'd come over. And so I had so many friends with like crazy stories you'd hear from, like, I remember Phil Sabella played, and he was, a missionary kid in Czech Republic, and um, and then obviously Sammy's from India, and it was just you'd hear a lot of stories. The one thing that always ticked me off though was like I had joined the team because like they were down people, and they were like, if you want to play, you can play, and I was just doing it because I felt like I would just enjoy it. But I remember being upset about it, like hearing kids at Valley Forge just rip on the team, like, oh, they suck, I would never play for them. And you'd be like, that always drove me nuts. Like there's a few people in 24 Down that were like that. Oh, the soccer team sucks, man. I'm not playing for them. And I'm like, man, if we had the people that could actually play,
it's hard to hear you.
is it?
Oh, you're good now. I think you might have covered the mic.
Oh, sorry. Like if we had the people that could play, we would have been a lot better than we were. And I would have gladly sat on the pine and watched, And I know the game that I got the yellow card for swatting the ball.
Was that what happened? That was the Davis game.
That was a Davis game, and I remember coming in. I came in late, and it was like we were trying to kill off the game. I think we were up by like a goal, and there was like 10 minutes left, and so coach was like, just go in there and run. Like,
do you think they put you in because like Norm and like other people were kicked out? Because
yeah, well,
people got red carded.
Because you can't sub in for somebody that has a red card, so you just take off somebody off the field. They don't get replaced. So I'm not sure what happened, but I remember at the end of the game, like maybe like 10 minutes left, like coach being like, I just need you to go in there and run and just not give them a break. Like, I don't care. And so it was just a high pressure game, and we were also jacked up and stuff. And it was right after Matt had thrown the ball, that every time there was a throw in, I was just like going up and playing basketball defense on the guy throwing the ball in, and I got a yellow card. And oh man, that was so great.
I remember watching it, and like, because like you, first of all, you are good at soccer. Like we've played soccer together, and you're better than the average person, probably more than better than the average person. But I remember like you didn't get to play that much at college, and so like you getting to come in the game, like we were all hype, and you were only in for like a couple minutes before the yellow card.
Yeah.
It's just so hilarious.
It was a shining moment in my soccer career for sure. So I'll never, one of the coolest parts, one of the coolest memories I have was playing indoor soccer in Spring City. I think it was. They had an indoor soccer place, and it was my last year, and we were playing, and like we would go, and there'd be like a group from Valley Forge, there'd be a group from other places, but then there'd be like a really large group of Mexican kids that would come out, and they'd all kind of like be in like their kind of area, like 20 of them. And I remember Mike Hattinger, who was an MK, grew up in Mexico. Like, we're trying to get the game started, and Mike just starts yelling across the field in Spanish to all these kids. But like, because he grew up in Mexico, like it's not like an American that learned Spanish in Spanish class. Like, it was like, he says it like he lives there, and it was like everyone in the group just like their eyes just got big. Like, it was just so funny, because I was like, who is this white kid, and why does he speak like the most amazing Spanish I ever heard in my life?
Yeah, and like he's a
He
white looking dude. Like, he doesn't look like, oh, this guy, like you would think he grew up in Mexico. Like, he looks like he grew up in Ohio.
Yeah, and he was, honestly, the last 2 years that we played, he's probably the best player on the team. Like,
Yeah, he was good.
He's good. Yeah, he was really good. So, and we had a few guys that played that were really, really good. I remember Anthony Warfel was really good. And yeah, yeah, I'm blanking, but I know Fletcher was really good too. So,
So that was good. Hold on. So your next questions are from Colleen.
okay.
I think you're covering your mic again. Sometimes when you shuffle, it gets a little hard to hear you.
Okay, sorry. Is it good now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So her first question is, and these are pretty common questions she asks most people, but what is your best and worst memory of 24 down?
Okay. My best memory has got to be, I loved the prank that we pulled on maintenance that one night. I don't even know. You might have been. I think it might
Security.
have
been, you mean on security?
Yeah, security. I think you might have been graduated at that point. I don't remember. But
was that like the night that we were all out like
yes.
chanting?
Yes. So you were there. So
yeah.
Have you guys talked? I'm sure you guys talked about that in the podcast before.
So we brought it up on mine. I think somebody else brought it up on theirs, because you like told me, like you mentioned something about it, and I was like, what is he talking about? So we talked about it on mine, but we basically just talked about the fact that we did it. Josh Lee like called security on us saying we were like 4 down, and then when they came in, like we all like ran out. But you said something else that I completely forgot. I think that was part of it.
Well, we had started driving, or we had started running. We ran he came around the corner from 4, and we all booked it towards Bongiorno, and then ran through the quad in between the library and whatever that new building was.
Mm-hmm.
And the security truck, I remember like hopping the curb and driving through the grass after some of the guys. And we ended up hiding in Beisel Up, and there was guys everywhere, all over campus, hiding in ditches and all sorts of stuff. So we waited maybe like 20 minutes and then snuck back to the dorm. And I remember being in my room, which was the room that was adjacent to the lobby at the end of the hall, and hearing maintenance walk out. And so like we walk out like, oh, we just woke up, like what's going on? And the guy was like these guys, man, he's like, I'm just trying to do my job, and these kids, man, they're like causing trouble, and it's like this isn't like, I'm not getting paid enough for this and all this stuff. But I remember, and I think you mentioned this, but I don't think anyone mentioned this in the podcast, was that when we were talking to him, all of a sudden all these kids start walking across the field next to Bongiorno in black, and they came up, and I was realizing like, these are all kids from 4 walking back, and we had no idea, but they were playing capture the flag in the back of campus that night.
Oh my gosh.
And so they got approached by security and got in trouble. I remember them having meetings with Student Life that next day, and them being like, we have no idea why we're getting in trouble for this. We have no clue what's happening. I don't remember how it really resolved. I just remember them like, there was this big misunderstanding the next day.
I forgot about that completely. Yeah, I remember that they were coming across that huge field next to Bongiorno, and they're
Yeah.
all black.
Yeah.
We were like, I
It was
think Josh
perfect.
Lee called and said, like, "Hey, these guys are
Moving
out
forward.
here canning 4 down," and I
Yeah.
think they're
It was perfect. And I remember just being like, it was so perfect. I felt bad because I was like, shoot, these kids are going to get like, and they did. They all had like meetings with Reggie Chappell the next day. So yeah, no, that was one of the best. That was one of the best. I think worst memory, man, I don't really have many bad memories of 24 down. I think, yeah, no, I don't really have very many bad memories of it. Like not necessarily like rough. I remember I remember the kids from I remember being really annoyed whenever uh Flick and like all those guys stole the road signs off the sign. Remember they were stealing signs and the cops came and they put the signs under the bed. They were putting signs underneath my bed at like 3 a.m. And I'm like waking up and they're like, just go back to bed, don't worry about it. And I remember waking up and being like, what the heck? Like I was like taking signs and throwing them out my window and stuff. And oh, that was frustrating because it was like, don't put that stuff in my room. Like I'm not going to get arrested for your stupidity, you know?
right. I've got one. Do you remember opening your laptop
Oh yeah.
in class and just seeing this marvelous, well chiseled naked body in your background?
Remember that. Yeah. No, I remember you going in my room when I wasn't there and using photo booth and lying on my bed naked and taking a photo of yourself and then putting it as my desktop. And then I remember opening it up in I think it was like Blevin's class and being like opening it and like oh man, that was the
It
worst.
was my back, not my front. Just so everybody knows,
Yes, not
it
yeah.
was not the original.
But it was bad enough, man. So yeah, that was pretty awful.
Oh,
I
that was,
remember
I don't
a
remember how I
kid
got access to your laptop.
I remember a kid in Valley Forge or 24 Up stealing my iPod and then finding out that he stole my iPod because I had the box from the iPod and the serial number on the one in his room matched my because he had like found one like a month after I lost mine.
Was that the guy that lived next to me?
Yeah, and he like
Because I remember he would be
he
playing
was
music
terrible.
all night till like 7 a.m., like full
He was
blast,
awful.
just like pounding the wall.
And I got told by the RA, like, don't call the cops. Do not call the cops. And I'm like, I'm going to call the cops. Like, he stole my property. And they're like, no, we'll take care of it. And they didn't take care of it. But I got it back, but it was like, it was just ridiculous. Yeah. That's kind of the weird thing about like a university as small as Valley Forge is like the the line between legality and we're just going to take care of it in house is so blurred because they treat it like a ministry rather than a school.
Right.
Which is a whole different conversation, but yeah.
Yeah, that is funny. So Colleen's next question is if you could change one rule at Valley Forge.
Say that again.
If you could have changed one rule at Valley Forge, what would you have changed?
It's not so much a rule, but I would have I think I would have 100% changed the way that they approach discipleship. And because I don't think that a liberal arts undergrad school should be necessarily responsible for your discipleship as a follower of Jesus. But I also think that if you are there for a ministry major and you're learning about how to do ministry and all that stuff, but you aren't in an active community grow because like vast majority of the people that are there are not from Phoenixville, so it's not like you can jump into your local church and still be mentored by somebody and all that kind of stuff. But that was the hardest part of that was the hardest part for me my 4 years was feeling like I had my ministry classes but not feeling like I was plugged in relationship, known and knowing others in a way that was conducive to my relationship with Jesus. And, because like when you're just doing stuff for the church, but you don't actually have like a real vibrant relationship with Jesus, like you're just asking for burnout, you're asking for a terrible time, and you're asking for like to just drop off. And I know for a lot of guys that happened. Um, and like I was really blessed to have CLA and doing that internship. Like I feel like my love for everything changed whenever I actually had a chance to go do ministry. And but I would say like if you could change a rule, it would be having a way that nobody's falling through the cracks pastoral care wise at the school.
Well, it was like so much of it was spoon fed, like between like I mean you're going to your ministry classes, which are good,
Yeah.
but then like it's just chapel every day.
Yeah.
I don't really think the church did a lot, or not the church, sorry, the school did a lot to promote. Like they wanted you, like they told you had to go to a church, but they never actually really like, from what I recall, like promoted like a
Yeah.
healthy like church connection.
Yeah.
And some of the best church experiences I had while I was at Valley Forge, like I went to a place called the Power Place,
Yep.
and I went to like Antioch, but those were like 45 minutes to an hour away from the school. Like I was like, I got to go far to
Yeah.
like get connected to somewhere, because it
Yeah.
was like almost like it created that divide of like the church and Valley Forge, like
Yeah.
so that I could get that church experience outside of Valley Forge where it probably
Yeah.
wasn't very healthy.
And it's like that whole like false secular sacred kind of a thing, because like even on campus, like being at Valley Forge never felt like a spiritual exercise. It always felt like an education.
Mm-hmm.
And right or wrong, like I know that I suffered for all 4 years not knowing that I didn't have like a solid group of guys that where there was like a system in place where like, hey, we would pray together, read the Bible together. Like I had that in spurts, and people would be like, okay, let's just do this because no one else is doing it. But it was never like something that was from the school itself.
Right.
So, but like I said, like if it's a liberal arts college, like you can't really demand them to be responsible for your own discipleship. But at the same time, it's like, you're putting people on an island being at Valley Forge. So yeah.
Yeah. I would love, I mean, I will never speak at Valley Forge. Like, let's just be honest. I mean, I'm a banker, and they probably wouldn't want me to speak anyway. But I mean, I told this like to kids at like youth group and stuff. Like, they ask about like my college experience, and I don't sugarcoat it. I'm like, oh yeah, I went to a Christian college, and like it was not like Christian at all. Like my experience, like Buddha talks about that. Like everybody there has different experiences.
Yeah.
But I would love somebody to go back there and like basically preach a sermon on like how Christian college can ruin your faith.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important to recognize it for sure, because I think that's the that's kind of the misnomer with Valley Forge and with Bible colleges in general, is that you're going to be a spiritual giant by the time you graduate.
Right.
And I was lucky to have people in my life before I got there that kind of warned me about that, and said like, hey, here's some things that you need to do when you're a freshman to set the course. And
Mm.
you know it's like in most colleges that have like rush week and stuff, where you're trying to get into a sorority or a fraternity or something, or trying to figure out what your niche is going to be. like
Mm.
like you kind of you had to have that when you're at Valley Forge, because otherwise it's like, you know it's it's hard to land on your feet, I feel like.
Yeah.
So luckily, I mean, I luckily had the soccer team. I had ministry on the weekends where I played in worship teams and stuff, and that was really really helpful for me. But I know for a lot of guys, like they didn't have that. If you didn't play a musical instrument, or you didn't have somebody that was related to somebody that could get you an in and some sort of thing, like there was a lot of possibility for people to fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's good. That was good. Really good answer.
Thanks.
So Colleen's last question: um, Would you consider getting the 24 down tattoo?
No.
it's such like a it's such a hard line question because like I love that how she words it though, because some people she just says like, when are you getting the tattoo, because she knows they probably have tattoos, but like
Yeah.
for people that Colleen doesn't know or like that clearly don't have tattoos, it's just like no.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever met Colleen, but I mean I know who she is, but I don't think I've ever met her. But I mean, it was so funny. I remember talking to Brooke about this like years ago and being like, yeah, there was actually a kid, maybe more than one, but I know that had a 24 down tattoo, and it was like so foreign to her because she's like, why in the world would you get a tattoo of a floor you lived on at college?
Yeah.
You know, and and I can understand, I can appreciate why someone would get it for sure, but for someone that has no connection to 24 down as a entity, like it is kind of crazy,
It is. I mean, I have like 24, like the 24 down like hoodie and stuff, and like people are like, "What's 24 down?" And I'm like, "It's the floor I lived on at school, but like we're still very connected, so it's really like a community." And they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's I don't really understand that." Like people
Yeah.
just it's different, man. It really is. Like what we have is like just very different. That unless you're like a part of it or there, like you just don't get it.
Yeah, it's very much the Rage Against the Machine subculture of Valley Forge.
Yep. Yep. So the next one's a new reoccurring question that's been put out by Carlos, who was kind of like the original, you know, big RA of 24 down. So he asks, if you build a 24 down Valley Forge escape room, what elements would you include?
Hmm. I think was there they had community bathrooms in 24 down, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be like endless stalls of showers where you have to find, you know what I mean, like just a creepy like darkly lit bathroom with endless stalls of showers.
It's
So, honestly, because I remember like when you like go take a shower like late at night, you'd be like, this is like disgusting and gross, and there's like a light out and there's like a flickering light in the back, and you're like, I might get electrocuted by stepping into this, Yeah, for sure.
I wonder if that's why Hat loves Saw movies so much, because
Seriously,
he probably just relates to them from having to use those
it's
community
hot,
bathrooms.
man. Yeah, like that's like the vibe of it's like half 20. It's yeah. 24 down has a distinct Saw vibe in some of the sections of the building for sure.
Well, so the apartment had its own bathroom, community bathroom, but it was more just like a regular bathroom with a bath
Yeah.
and a shower. And
That shower was
dude, it
disgusting.
was nasty, man. I forget, one of us had a loofah that they put in there, and it was like, I don't think it ever got used, and it was like brown.
Yeah,
Like, it was disgusting.
well, it was gross when we moved in. I remember scrubbing the crap out of that thing when we first moved in, and it just didn't do anything because it was just stained like that. I
No.
remember when we moved out. Actually, I was talking to my parents. My parents reminded me of this when I was home in December. Uh, when I graduated, I had lost my keys like maybe a month before we graduated, and we're driving down the turnpike back to Harrisburg with all my stuff, and I get a phone call, I think from Sammy Lee, and he's like, "Hey man, we were carrying the couch out of your apartment, and we found your key inside the couch. We took a box cutter and opened it up and found your set of keys in the couch. Like, do you want us to keep it?" Like, okay, so like I ended up like driving back to get because like we lost so much stuff in that couch. They like found $20 bills and like
Oh, yeah.
all sorts of stuff. Yeah,
It
maybe that.
was completely busted. I don't even remember, like the couch, like somebody jumped on it or something, and it broke like the base of it.
Yeah.
But it just turned into like the most comfortable couch because you would just sit on it and just like sink. Like,
You know what would be in the escape room would be a giant photo of my face. That would be in the escape room because I don't know if many people know this story, but when I was interning at CLA, I came back my senior year and printed out. There's a website called Blockposter where you
mhm.
can take a photo that's like a small JPEG and blow it up on multiple sheets of paper so that you can like tape it together. So I did this giant photo of my face because I thought it'd be funny to do. So I printed out. It was on like 150 sheets of paper, square, giant face. And so I used it as like a sermon illustration for the youth group on perspective or something. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna bring this back and put it up on the wall. And so I put this giant poster of my face on the wall in the end lounge at 24 Down, um, and then cut it so that I could still open the door to my room through the face. And I remember for like 3 or 4 days, maintenance was knocking on my door saying, "Hey, you need to take this down. You need to take this down." And then one night I was playing Xbox in my room, and so Dr. Meyer knocked on my door and opened up the door, and he's like, "Well, I think you need to take this down now. This is good while it lasted, but it's I think it's time." And I was like, okay, yeah, sure." But yeah,
He
I
probably saw it every day
did see it every
because
day.
his house was like
Yep.
right up that street. Like he
He
probably
walked
walked past from chapel every day and was like,
Yeah.
he
I just
probably
remember,
never looked at 24 Down. And then
I
one day
just remember him
was
going,
like, I'll acknowledge this building.
yeah.
Oh,
Oh, he was like, he was like, now it was fun while it lasted. Yeah.
that might
Yeah.
be the best impression of Dr. Meyer we've had to date.
Thanks. Yeah. Uh, yeah. So that would definitely be in the escape room for me.
That's good. So moving on, next questions we have are from Matthias.
Ooh.
He asked first, he said, what was it like being one of the few genuinely introverted dudes on the floor? And he said, LOL, most of us are embarrassingly extroverted. So I always wondered about you chill dudes.
Yeah. You know, one of the things about being an introvert in 24 Down was, and I think it was like, it lended itself to the whole like outcast thing with 24 Down, was because I didn't engage as much as most people on the floor. There was like this assumption that I just didn't approve or I didn't like certain people because I was quiet, um, which I think kind of just lends itself to the culture of 24 Down, where it's like, well, if you're not for us, you're against us, kind of a thing. Um, so that was kind of tough, like being in 24, because I was a part of 24 Up and then moved to 24 Down and didn't really have much of an opinion of most of the guys in 24 Down um, when I moved there. Um, but I do know that like we were in some ways lumped in with the whole um, flag burning thing at first because of being 24 Up, and I was associated with like Bridges and Micah Durazio and Chocolate and um, Chaz and like that whole kind of group. And I know when that whole thing went down, there was like a suspicion that we were involved with that. Um, and But I remember when that happened and us being just so mad about it as 24 Up people, because we were like, it's just stupid. Like we could, like it's not that we, like I had no, like the whole rivalry with 24 Down was so dumb to me in the first place. Like I just,
Right.
I could care less. But when the whole flag burning thing happened, it was like the person on our floor that we really didn't really get along with in the first place was now making us look like we had a part to play in all of it. Just made us so upset, and we wanted to figure out what. I remember being like mad for 24 Down when the whole flag burning thing happened, because we were like, hey, we don't like them either, you know.
Right.
And so which I mean, like now, like I mean, that whole crew and the guys involved, like obviously, like the hatchet has been buried and all that kind of stuff, and have moved on and all that. But at the time, like it was just strange. But yeah, and then like being in 24 Down, like there was yeah, I mean, like, I was pretty quiet. I always went down and hung out with Mikey Jameson and Kujawa, and talk about Calvinism for like 5 hours straight. So that was like my outlet for my introvertedness, was having crazy theological discussions for hours upon hours upon hours.
You just gave Matthias like a Calvinist boner right now.
Yeah. I've had so many good conversations with Matthias since we've graduated. And it was really funny because we never really talked about that kind of stuff while we were there. Honestly, I had no idea that Matthias was into theology at the time. Maybe he wasn't. But when I was like a junior, I had discovered Mark Driscoll, and I had discovered like Calvinist theology. And I was like, holy crap, like this is like insane and amazing. And it's like challenges my intellect. And I'm like, I just love this. And finding people on campus that like were kind of like delving into the same stuff was like, I mean, like I remember Angelo Valley at the same time was looking into that, and a few other guys, Seth Campbell.
Right.
But it was like, it's Valley Forge, so it's obviously Arminian University, like free will, you know, the Assembly's position paper on Calvinism, and you know all that kind of stuff. So it was like you don't really have those conversations in class. Like it's like it's like assumed. It's like assumed that we're all Arminian, so we don't even have that debate. So it's just, yeah, it was fascinating.
It's like, this is a really dumb analogy, but like when we talk about like the people that smoked at Valley Forge,
Yeah,
and like it was like this secret thing, but like you met somebody else that did it. It was like this cool connection. That's probably what it was like when you were like, oh,
yeah.
somebody else
What
studies
there was,
Calvinism, like,
yeah,
because
yeah,
it was just like they wouldn't, like the school wouldn't acknowledge it, like they wouldn't really, like,
yeah,
I don't think any professors were talking about it or really teaching it, or
yeah.
maybe Marino probably would bring it up or something like that, but
But but the thing was that was funny. Like is when you're at Valley Forge, when you go down that route theologically, you have like this. I don't know if it's a false sense of confidence, but you're almost like, wow, like I'm the only person thinking about this and like considering this, and
right.
everyone else just thinks it's the way it is, but we are the ones that are like trying to at least reconcile like this perspective on scripture. And like I just remember being really exciting as like a junior or senior. And but I tell you what, man, like that kind of theology, it ruins you for preaching. And it was really hard my first couple years in ministry, when you're like, okay, the Holy Spirit is the one that does all the work. You know, it's, you know, it's not to say that it's, you know, that I'm like hardcore Calvinist. I'm not, but like even in a classical Arminian perspective, like the Holy Spirit's the one who does the heavy lifting. So why for the last 20 years of my life have I thought that I needed to convict all the kids in my youth group to feel bad about their sin when it's the Holy Spirit? And so like when you get to the end of your messages, you're like, how do I do this altar call? How do I do this, response whenever it's not me, it's the Holy Spirit, you know what I mean? So yeah, but that all came about from that whole Michael Jameson and Kujawa conversations, and then it morphed into the church I ended up working at. And so yeah, that's probably, that year was the best, most formative year for me when it came to ministry, was that last year and a half.
That's awesome. So Matthias, kind of like his like part B of that question was, speaking of which, was there ever a time that you did not want to be associated with living on 24 Down?
I would say that there were times that when I was at Valley Forge, I did regret being on 24 Down, simply because there wasn't as much of a vibrant spiritual life amongst the students on the floor,
Right.
which is, like fair play. You could say that that's, well, why didn't you make that, or why didn't you start that? Um, but at the same time, it was like, I look back, and it wasn't even 24 down, maybe in entirety, because I think my freshman sophomore year was the worst years for me, um, at Valley Forge when it came to like all that kind of stuff. But um, yeah, I never really didn't want to be a part of 24. Like, I always, even the guys that, rubbed me the wrong way or whatever, like it was just like, whatever, you're gonna have guys on every floor that, you aren't gonna agree with all the time. Um, so yeah, no, I didn't mind it.
That's good. So his last thing he just said, he loves you and Brooke, bro, and he's praying for you guys in Northern Ireland. And Matthias actually came and visited.
Yes, he did. Yeah,
Did
we
they
took him.
honeymoon there?
Yeah, so they did a whole tour, and we did Northern Ireland with them for a day or two. Stayed at our house, and did they stay at our house? I can't remember, but we did like the North Coast and all the cliffs, and got a kebab for them, and like some Irish stuff, and yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So when you guys are home this summer, we'll hang out, because now that Matthias and I realized how stupid we are that we live so close to each other and never hang out, we text and talk and try to hang out a lot. Actually, his kids, or his son, goes to the same daycare as Abby, which is pretty cool.
Oh, no way.
So when you
That's
guys are
cool.
back, we'll definitely get together.
Yeah, it was cool, like connecting. We've connected so much more now that we're out of Valley Forge than we ever did, because I mean, I don't know what he's talked about in his podcast, but just his theological progression
Mm-hmm.
after leaving Valley Forge and then not doing AG World anymore. Like, I definitely have an appreciation for where he's kind of landed, and really
Yeah.
has like stuck to his convictions and stuff. And so we've had a lot of really good conversations since then.
Yeah.
He's a top lad.
Well, and for like so many of us, I think like Valley Forge in college was like adolescence part two. Like we are
Yeah,
still very much trying to figure out who we were. And like now, like, I mean, we're 10 years, 15 years out of school that we know like who we are. Like most people, I think, are pretty confident in who they identify as a person. But back then, like, we were just like bags in the wind, man, like floating around trying to figure
yeah,
out what we
yeah,
believed, what we wanted to do with life, like how we felt about the school and the church. And like, yeah,
yeah.
it was crazy.
And a lot of guys, like, and even I felt this too, is like when you go into Bible college, you're like, I love my youth pastor, and my youth pastor loved me, and so I want to do this with my life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you get to school, not even Valley Forge, anywhere. You get into a ministry school, and you're like figuring out, okay, I my my youth pastor treated me like how Jesus would treat people, and I love what he did. And they like conflate youth ministry with just being a good person that follows Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
and following and doing, and so it's like, I don't have to do this vocationally to be like my youth pastor to someone else, and which is a great realization. I just wish that for a lot of people that didn't have to waste $40,000 to find that out, you know. And there are people, you know what I'm saying though.
Yeah, because I live that. Like that's pretty much like I
Yeah,
went to the Valley Forge to be a youth pastor, and then by my senior year was like,
yeah,
I don't think I'm gonna be a youth pastor. Like I don't even think I'm
yeah,
gonna be a pastor in a church.
yeah,
But like clearly like live a healthy Christian life, like
yeah,
have a secular job if you want to call it that, but like
yeah.
that doesn't make you any less of a Christian.
No, like, and that's the thing that is so, it, it's tough, and it's a tough thing. I think maybe if anything, churches do a really bad job at at conflating full-time professional ministry with following God's will for their
Hmm.
life, where it's like, you know, on the third night of every retreat, you're going to get called into ministry, you know,
Yeah,
and it's like, well, my friend Wolfie's a banker and is a youth leader and loves Jesus and cares for people and treats, and
yeah,
loves people and serves people, but you're still in ministry. You're just doing it at a bank, and like we
Yeah.
just have such a terrible understanding of what vocation and ministry looks like. And
Yeah.
I don't think it's wrong for us to have youth pastors that inspire us and
Mm,
put us into Bible college, but at the same time, like we have to expect, I think, that you
right.
know paths are going to change. you know
Just the reality of it. Yeah.
yeah.
That's good, man. Um, so next question is from somebody that's a pastor. So these are actually questions from Buddha. Real quick, by the way, since we're kind of talking about that,
Yeah.
anybody listening to this, if you are a pastor of a church, if you are, a big member involved with your church, like Tom said, he and Brooke are going to be home this summer. They're itinerating. So like if you guys would like them to come speak at your church, like I know they obviously would love to do that. Anything you want to add there, Tom?
Yeah, man, like we're going to be back from June to October, mid-October, and we're going to be all over the Northeast. We're really going to be all over the country, but primarily the Northeast. And we're going to be starting the journey of planning a church when we come back from our itineration. And so we'd love to partner with churches and share about the needs in Europe and
Yep.
in Ireland, and inspire your people for mission.
This is maybe a little biased, but I actually believe this. Tom, you're one of the best preachers I've heard. Like,
Oh, thanks,
just
man.
like you're just a solid speaker, and I think it's because it's like a good mix of like deep theological, and then like the like the Phil Baker, like Valley Forge Youth Ministry, like you always have to have an illustration or something like in your sermon, like or have like a handout or so like it's a mix of that just like it makes it very like it's not all on the surface like flaky, but it's not like to the point where like the average person like would come into your church and be like, what is this guy talking about? Like this doesn't make any sense.
Thank you.
So have Tom come talk at your church and his wife. She's amazing too.
Yeah, she's great.
Come talk to your kids.
Yeah, and check out our YouTube channel.
Yeah, Party Create.
Yeah, Party Create. We do. We have a YouTube channel that we use as a kind of an inroads to ministry here for kids. So it's all art art tutorials and craft tutorials, and then a little bit of Jesus as well. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. So I'll use that to ask really his second question, and then I'll get back to the first one. But he said, "How is being a pastor in the States and a missionary the same and different?"
Yeah, being a missionary looks different for every missionary because there's so many different roles and things that people do. Like we have friends that are missionaries that are professors in Bible colleges in Europe and have a completely different life than what we have. Like for us, we are working as essentially church planters, and so right now our life is so subject to what we can make of it. And I think for being a pastor in the States, there was so much security with being on a staff and having a paycheck and, you know, having a set hour for your ministry and office hours and an office and, all the things that come with being on a church staff in America. Like for us, like now, like we work out of our house. We're in COVID world right now where it's like if you want to make something happen, you got to make it happen.
Mhm.
For us, like in ministry, like we have to go out and get it, which is the same in ministry in the States. But, you know, at the end of the day, for a lot of churches and a lot of places, like your people still show up next week and you'll still have Sunday.
Right.
But for us here, it's like we got to make it, like if we want to have something happen, we got to go out and grab it. So that's probably the biggest difference, I think.
Right. Yeah, and like you said, it probably depends on where you are, because
Yeah. Yeah.
like you might not have church every week. Like,
Yeah.
it
And like,
depends.
and there's pastors in Europe that have their own church, and there's a lot of international churches and things like that where you can have more of a staff role. But for us, it's like, do we do parachurch stuff? Like, do we just go out and like serve people and come up with a ministry that serves people in compassion ministry, or do we work with, trafficking people, like getting people out of that? Like, do we go and plant a church? Well, if you go plant a church, like, how do you meet people to plant a church? And do you start a small group in your house, like that kind of stuff? So it's like, it's very much more like, you know you got to make it happen for yourself, or else,
Yes.
because there's also missionaries that just watch Netflix, like, it's like, so you gotta just kind of be a self-starter and a go-getter and an entrepreneur. So
You got to meet the people where they are, and they're all streaming.
yeah, they're all streaming.
Is that like, do you think that's more like freeing or more challenging, like having like that openness of, I guess, opportunity, right?
Yeah, it has its upsides and its downsides. Like, for us with this last year and how hard it's been, not having that kind of stability in our life has been really difficult. Because, like, as you know, like, when you're in ministry, or pretty much in any vocation, like, you can get caught in the trap of who you are being what you do and what you accomplish and what you can get done. And when you're walking around with your arm hanging off from what's happened in the last year, and we look at what we're seeing around us, and we're like, yeah, we haven't really accomplished much because of how hard this year's been. It can be hard, but at the same time, like, having that freedom of just going to get it done, like, a lot of people just really thrive on that. And we've found it hard and easy in some regards. So
Yeah, that's good, man. So his other question was, who is, in your opinion, the weirdest and the smoothest guy that were on 24 Down?
Ooh, that is hard, man. I would say, the weirdest. I don't know. Is it mean to name the weirdest person?
I mean, the truth is, we were all weird in our own way. So
Yeah.
I don't think weird's an insult. If it was like, who was like the dumbest guy, maybe, but like weird, like everybody's weird in their own way. So no, I think it's okay.
Did Davey Newell live in 24 Down at any point?
No, he was on 24 Up.
Okay. So I remember him just like walking into your room and just staring at you. You remember that?
Like,
he just kind of
play video games, and it would just be like, and he would just stand behind you like.
Yeah. Did Jesse Couric live in 24 Down?
No.
Car
wreck, they called him.
What?
Or train wreck.
Train wreck.
Because his last name was Couric, and he was just like a mess, like all the time. Oh my gosh, he was hilarious. But then it was Car Wreck, and then it just devolved into nicknaming him Train Wreck. Dude, the nicknames at Valley Forge were the best.
Yes. I remember the night when Arthur. Well, it happened a lot, but remember Arthur Price?
Mm-hmm.
Arthur and Josh Koss getting into fights all the time in their room, like come to blows all the time. Like, they would literally be fighting, like, and Bo Williamson would be like breaking it up every time. Like, that was like literally Bo's job, was breaking up them fighting. No, I think probably the strangest, and I'll just say this: I think Matt Wolf was probably the strangest person in 24 Down to me.
Yeah, and he did live on 24 Up then too.
Oh yeah, he did. Yeah,
up there.
And he like hung out with my sister once, and I did not like that. Oh. So.
Yeah. I love Matt Wolf. I think he just has like a natural awkwardness about him that kind of makes him seem that way. But like, he is a very confident dude. Like, in his awkwardness, right?
He's just like, I'm just here, man. This is just me. It's who I am. I think I loved. I'm trying to think of like. Yeah, there wasn't like anyone like because now I feel bad. Like, I don't like, I like Matt. Yeah.
I don't even remember like who the weird guys were. I think I just avoided them a lot. But like somebody was saying, like there was a guy, like a kid obsessed with like the Naked Brothers band, which is like the weirdest thing.
I
Like,
remember who was the kid. Okay, I didn't know him, so maybe I can't say. Neil would like play World of Warcraft for hours upon hours upon hours.
yeah,
I never met him. I don't think I ever even knew who he was, but I just remember hearing of Neil and him playing Warcraft.
that's fair. That's a fair answer. He probably wouldn't even be offended by that because that's literally what he did.
Yeah.
Neil Monster is what they called him because he just never came out of his room.
Yeah. No, I there wasn't really anybody that was weird on Valley Fort or in 24 Down that I remember.
Smoothest guy?
Smoothest guy. You know who the smoothest guy was? But it was. The smoothest guy in 24 Down to me was James Majeski, because he was just so like smooth, man. He's just a smooth dude. Yeah, he's just hilarious. Like, always just be like, "Hey, man, what's happening?" Yeah, all right, cool. You know what I mean? Like, just
He's a
not a care.
smoothie.
Yeah, dude, I think he's hilarious. Like, we hung out a little bit when we were at Valley Forge together, but he was just always just like super chill.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of guys in 24 Down. I think thought they were the smoothest, but weren't. But I won't go there. But I think that, yeah, no, I love Majeski. He's an awesome guy.
That's a good answer. I don't think anybody has mentioned him yet as being one of the smoothest guys, and I definitely
because he's just
had that way about him, you know.
Yeah, like it's just like I am what you get what you get with me, and like, and I'm fun, and like, so I'm just down for whatever. He was always one of those guys on the weekends when people would like leave, he'd just be like hanging out and be like, "Hey, what are we doing?"
Yeah. I love James. Yeah, we were good friends.
Go down the fourth meal.
That's right, man. So I'll ask. So I'll ask my question. I usually ask everybody, and then I have one last set of questions, and we'll just kind of cover any stories that we didn't get to, and then we'll kind of close it out here in a little bit. But so my recurring question, I just like to kind of ask this question to everybody, is if you could have any building or space at Valley Forge named after you, what would you choose and why?
I would choose the gym because I was the star athlete of Valley Forge when I was there, and I am the caliber in which they would name a gym at Valley Forge.
You set the level. Harshberger gym.
I set the tone, man. Yeah. Yeah. Either that or like, well, I guess the back porch isn't a thing anymore.
So, oh, really?
Yeah. Well, it's there, but it's like, I think it's like a school resource room or something like that. Like they have classrooms and stuff in there now.
So, oh, that's a bummer.
Because we used to spend, we always used to go to the back porch and watch Champions League games during the week because the games were always on 2:30 in the afternoon. And so we go down there and watch Manchester United or whoever was playing all the time. So spent a lot of time back there, but it's unfortunately not like a thing anymore.
Yeah. So with soccer being over in Northern Ireland, is it like crazy cool being a soccer fan?
Yeah.
Like, let me ask this, is it like Green Street Hooligans?
So Northern Ireland doesn't have a professional league, it has a semi-pro league. So the Irish league that you would be able to play on FIFA is in the Republic. But then in Northern Ireland, we have a semi-pro smaller league called the Irish. They also call it the Irish League. But the hooliganism is still definitely a thing here when it comes to. But it's not anything really as organized or as glamorous as like Green Street Hooligans. So,
right.
But it's just more or less just drunk idiots at football matches. Like you could take your family to a rugby match and it's like classy and people love going to them. It's like a family thing. But a lot of families won't take their kids to football matches here because it's just full of like sectarianism and like a lot of like racist kind of stuff. And so the vibe here is just not as family friendly. Actually, Belfast has a hockey team that's like really, really big in Europe, the Belfast Giants. And they started a hockey team because they wanted to have a team that represented all of Northern Ireland that wasn't Catholic or Protestant. And so hockey is actually a pretty big thing over here, like locally. So we went to a match or a hockey game about a year ago, and it was awesome. It was like going to a Hershey Bears game. So, but they've got a lot of guys that'll come from the NHL or the AHL and move over to Europe or come back from Europe, and it's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. So Hat actually, for those listening, Hat is not on the podcast today because he's out watching a soccer game because he's a West Ham fan, right?
Yeah, yeah. Which pretty sure that's the team from Green Street Hooligans.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. So, but I don't. Yeah, it's just that movie is, people make fun of that movie here quite a bit. So.
Right. Nice. Okay, so last set of questions is from Francis.
Cool.
His first one's just kind of a random one. He said, "Would you rather go a whole day in cold, wet socks, or get punched in the face every other hour?"
Oh, cold socks. For sure. Who wants to get punched in the face? Once. I don't want to
An entire day in cold, wet socks, though,
Yeah. No.
versus getting punched in the face once every hour. I guess it depends on who's punching you. Like if it's Matthias or Dwayne Lee, like I wouldn't want to get punched by them. If it was like me or
Holy cow! I completely forgot about Dwayne.
he just did the podcast like a couple weeks ago.
Wow. Man, that's just like a whole new memory bank in my head.
He'll probably listen to this. I mean, he's a part of it now. Like that's like the coolest thing is like you just forget. Like there's probably people that will listen to this that'll be like, "Oh, I forgot about Tom." I never knew Dwayne Lee in college either. Like I didn't really hang out with him. He wasn't there a long time, so I don't even think we ever really interacted. But even after listening to his podcast, like I messaged him and reached out because like there was kind of little connections that we had. And he's like the coolest guy. Like I was like, he's probably the smoothest guy in reality, but like, yeah, it's just cool. It's cool the way that this like reconnects people that then also just like people you completely forgot about or didn't even know, like period, like how you can reconnect with them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. It's just so many stories, and I've been appreciating everybody's podcast. Like I listened to Baldwin's a few weeks ago. It's just really, it's cool to remember a lot of the things that happen, and then like even when it's like not like just having a completely different perspective on a certain situation while you were there, and then that was like what you remember, and then you hear about it from someone else's perspective, like 10 years later, and it's like, whoa, like I didn't even know that, you know?
Right. Well, it's like the whole flag burning thing. So like they just had put out like part one of that story, which was him talking to Phil and Alex and hearing their version of it. But then we actually kind of recording like little pieces of it, but there's going to be a part two that's just going over the different perspectives of members from 24 Down. Like D-Shat recorded a piece because he was Josh Davies' roommate. I think Hat recorded a segment with Telesh. Like, hopefully I'm not spoiling it, but it's just cool. Like it's. I think that's a great thing. Like everybody that gets on is like, I don't know if I'm going to have anything new to tell. And there always is, like stuff always comes up, but then it's like even just like the stories that we have heard, like the pranks or like soccer and stuff like that, just hearing other people's perspective. And like Buddha nails it, like when he talks about it, that like he's just shocked because like he had a complete, like Buddha and I's Valley Forge experience is like 100% different, like completely probably different ends of the spectrum. Like, and so like it's interesting hearing everybody's different perspective on it. And that's kind of, so that's actually Francis's last question was just how was your Valley Forge experience overall? He said including people, teachers, classes, meals, etc.
So Valley Forge.
Oh, you're a little quiet, Tom.
Am I fine now? Is that good?
Yeah, that's better. That's good. Sorry.
So Valley Forge for me was a good experience when it came to friendships, relationships, um, future ministry, all that kind of stuff. Valley Forge set me up, man. Like I was considering going to like Southeastern or Southwestern or or Wheaton or some Bible college somewhere far away, but being in the Northeast, like, and being a part of the assemblies, like right or wrong, like having all those connections from being there set me up to be able to do what I ended up going to do, which is great. And so I'm so thankful for Valley Forge for that. So yeah, no, it was a good experience. There's things I didn't enjoy about it, obviously, but I really enjoyed all the friendships that I had there and the classes. And I regret not taking the classes as seriously as I could have my first year or two. If you look back on it, like having McNaughton my first couple of years and not taking it super serious, and then ended up working for McNaughton like a few years later after college. Like, he was my boss for a little bit, and being like, man, this guy's just like a freaking genius. And there's so many things I can learn from this guy. And I'm like, what was I doing my freshman year? Like, I was being a freshman. That's what I was doing. But like, like, yeah, it was good. I mean, overall, I liked it. Chapel was not my favorite. Politics at the school was not my favorite. All that kind of stuff. But it is what it is.
Yeah, it wasn't like the greatest, but like it was ours, and it was formative. Like you can't like hate the things that made you who you are.
Yeah. The biggest regret that I had from Valley Forge was not making more effort to connect personally to professors. By far the biggest regret I have. And,
yeah.
Because I connected pretty well with Baker, and that was it. Like, and my sister Dipple did my sister's wedding, and they have a great relationship. And there's tons of professors that my sister has made really long friendships with that I'm like, man, I just did not have that same experience, and I wish I did. And so yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I think a lot of people would probably say that, or unless they did, but
yeah,
probably the majority of the people on 24 Down weren't, involved in having like relationships like that with the faculty, which truly were incredible. So like Brubaker did the podcast, and like it was like so good.
Yeah,
hearing him, it brought back so many memories too of just like again, he would have been somebody I like wish like just a little bit, like not even like hanging out with this guy on the weekends at his house, but like just to like be more engaged in class. And
it's strange, like the little like the fraternity kind of feel that you have when you graduate in ministry, and you see professors from Valley Forge at like ministry events, like we have like a ministers retreat for Pendel that we would go to every year, and then you'd run into professors and you'd be like, whoa, like I actually have a relationship with Brubaker now because he knows I'm a former student. Like, I spoke at his church when we were fundraising, and it was like, this is like so weird. Like, I'm preaching in front of Brubaker, and I've never been more nervous in my life,
Right.
Is that Abby?
Yeah, sorry. Hey, look who it is.
Hi, Abby.
Say hi.
Hi.
Just being shy.
What's new?
You just want to sit here?
Give it a couple hours.
Okay, that's Tom. Remember Tom and Brooke? It's like, sure. Anyway, so that was like the last of the questions. I guess I think we covered most of everything. The only thing I had here that you want to talk about was like something about a drug raid, which I'm like,
I can share that. I'll share it real quick. So you were asking me about stories that were funny, and I remember when I was a freshman, I had got connected with a couple kids that were connected to the Norristown Assembly Church in Norristown, and it was like um, this like tiny little church in like urban Norristown, which is a pretty rough area of Philly. And so we were like, let's go do a prayer walk with the church. And so it was like maybe 10 students from Valley Forge. I couldn't remember who was there except for it was Gabe Colazzo and Vinda and me were the only people I remember from there. Um, and so we are walking around Norristown on a Friday night, just wandering around praying. And it gets dark out. It's like 9 o'clock at night. And as we're walking around Norristown, most of the guys in the group were like, man, it's freezing out. We're just going to run to the car. So they start running through Norristown, getting back to the car. And we see them run down the hill. And as they get to the bottom of the hill, like, no joke, unmarked cop cars come flying out and surround them with guns raised. Like, there's cops everywhere. And we're like, and me and Vinda are like, I'm not running. So we're watching this whole thing from like 6 blocks away. And like kids from the group are like getting thrown on cop car hoods and like put in handcuffs. And we're like, so we wander up, we're like, what's going on? And basically there's like a group of like random like preppy white kids walking around Norristown. The cops were like, you guys are here to buy drugs, like what are you guys doing? And so me and Vinda were like, we don't know who these people are. And so we got back to but it was just such a crazy thing because like, it was, yeah. So we ended up, and then Gabe got a gun pulled on him by some guy that night. And it was just like stupid. It was just like stupid suburban white kids from like going into like Norristown to do ministry, just so naive. So
Crazy.
yeah, but yeah.
And
And Vinda's like, I'm not doing that. Like, I was like, I'm staying with Vinda. I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but so that was good times. That was freshman year.
Oh man, I feel like I remember that. I think I was around maybe that night. I wasn't like there, but I feel like I was hanging around 24 out that night.
And there was a couple of the kids that were there that were like they already had a reputation at Valley Forge for being like kind of just not smart, and they were talking back to the cops like, you have no right to detain me and all this stuff. And we're like, oh gosh, like just stop talking, like
right.
So yeah, that resulted in a student life meeting and parent calls and all this stuff. And it's like, you just need to be not so stupid.
I love that student life.
And Keith Applecar is the pastor of that church now. Apparently it's doing really, really well. So
nice.
Norristown's a rough place.
Yeah. Any other stories, topics, anything else you want to talk about, or anything else that you thought about?
That's all I can think of, man. It was really, really cool to go down memory lane and talk about 24 and,
Yeah, man, it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll do the plugs real quick, and then I'll kind of say a couple things, and then I'll let you have it to close us out then. So, real quick. So just the plugs. So 24 Down podcast is what we are recording. Hopefully you know that if you're listening to this. You can catch us on YouTube. We put the videos up there. You can catch us, on streaming, Spotify. I'm pretty sure it's on Apple, all that stuff. Just look up 24 Down Podcast. We've got a Gmail account, 24podcast@gmail.com, where you can email us. I don't know why you would, but you can. You can look us up on Twitter at 24 Down Podcast. I think it's the Twitter handle. That's mostly just announcement of when episodes go out. Probably like the biggest ways to engage with us is just on Facebook. We have the 24 Down podcast page, which is open. Anybody can follow that. That's where we put up episodes. We put up the announcements of like when we're going to have somebody on recording, special stuff like that. And then the other group is just the 24 Down group. That one's closed. Not that we're trying to keep anybody out. Not that we're saying like you can't be a part of this. But we just don't want like some random Joe Schmo joining that really doesn't have any part of like our family. But that's really cool because that's really where we get engaged and connected. So if you're not a part of that group, I can send you the access, but just connect with somebody because guaranteed, somebody that's in that group. And it's it's a good time. So Tom, thanks for coming on. I don't really know what to say just because like you're one of my best friends. Like, I mean, I was the best man at your wedding, like you were in my wedding. We lived back here in Central PA for such a long time together. We support you guys and your missions in Northern Ireland. Like Meg and I, like we just love you both so much. You and Brooke, like we pray for you guys all the time. And it's cool. It's just exciting, like just to see the ways that we've all grown and evolved since college. And like who would have ever thought like we'd be 10 years 12 years out of school like doing a Zoom call, like recording a podcast where I'm back here in Central PA with my career and you're over in Northern Ireland like doing missions work. So I mean, I love getting to see you. We don't get to see you guys enough just because you're 5 hours ahead of time across the the big pond there. But I'm excited for when you guys are coming home. We just, like I said, we just love you guys so much. And
Thanks,
that's all I'm gonna say, man. I don't really have much else to say other than just like love you.
We love you guys, and you've been such a great friend to me. Even as a sophomore, I think we met my freshman year, but we didn't really become friends until sophomore year. And you've been such a great friend to me all throughout those years. And I hope that White Chocolate can get on here at some point because I would love to hear his stories as well. And obviously D-Shat and Matty B. I don't know if Matty B would get on it or not. I'm not sure if he's
He might.
I don't know. Yeah. But man, I had so many great memories at Valley Forge, so many great memories with you guys, and just love you guys. And it's really great to be able to connect and be connected to you guys even 10 years out. So so thank you so much for letting me be a part of the podcast, man.
Glad to have you on, dude. With that, we'll let you go. But thanks again, man. And we love you.
Love you too, bro. See ya.
Yeah.